Hello and welcome to another episode of Wise Attraction. Today we're going to be dealing with the topic of healing from abuse. I'm your host for today, Bibi Babs, and to deal with this topic I have Ivy with me. She's a teacher, she's an empowerment and transformation coach. She's a mom of 3, a wife, and above everything, she's the daughter of the Most High God. Ivy, it's very good to have you here. 3.1 million people experienced abuse when they were children. Most of these people didn't speak about it. They never told anyone, and some of the reasons that people are scared of saying, when it happens, they don't know if they'll be blamed. They don't know, literally, you don't know who you're telling it is going to receive it. And sometimes there's also the question of, you don't know if is it my fault? Is it the person's fault? Did I attract this over myself? And at Wise Attraction, the goal here is really to help singles, to put them on a good footing for marriage. And things like abuse, the pain of abuse, all those things that if it's undealt with can really negatively affect someone in their relationship, in getting married, and in other aspects of their life. So that's what I really want us to speak to this afternoon. So Ivy, please help us. We know you're a coach. You've been doing lots of talks about healing, recovering from emotional wounds and things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, before I start, Bibi, thank you so much for having me on. I am really honored to be on the show today. And I hope that people who are single, they could listen more to shows like these, because marriage is one of those decisions that they are fundamental decisions that you make in your life, and you really don't want to go into a marriage still harboring issues of the past and all of that, and also just to educate yourself as well. So thank you for having me on today.
What really is sexual abuse?
There are so many different facets when it comes to abuse. When people talk about abuse, they are talking about just traumatic experiences. Now, there are different forms of abuse, and there are forms like emotional abuse, there's like financial abuse, there's sexual abuse, there is physical abuse, and there is some people call it technological abuse, like using the internet to abuse other people. There are several forms of abuse that people need to educate themselves about. But for the purpose of this topic, talking about sexual abuse, I'm just going to say what counts as sexual abuse pretty much is when someone does something sexual to another person without getting their permission first. So if you do any sexual thing to another person without getting their permission, that counts as sexual abuse. And you're probably thinking, what is this something that someone can do to another? Something like maybe touching without permission. For example, touching someone's breasts, touching them on the bottom. That counts as sexual abuse if you do not get their permission before touching them. That is inappropriate touching, and therefore it counts as sexual abuse. Also, they could be inserting. When I talk about inserting here, it could be inserting into any opening of the body. It could be the mouth, it could be say maybe the anus, it could be so inserting. If you do any form of insertion without the consent of the person, then that counts also as abuse. Things like showing some sexual content to people without their permission, without their explicit consent. Now, when I talk of sexual content, it could be a sexual video that you're showing to someone. If you do not seek that person's consent, if they do not say, yes, I want to see it, then that can count as abuse as well. So if say, for example, especially for young people these days with mobile phones and the internet and all of that, this one is very, very common, showing us, pictures go here and there, pictures fly around. You've got WhatsApp people, text messages, people just send videos, they forward videos and they forward things. So recently in the UK, I think forwarding a sexual video like that could also be a criminal act. Also, can I just say one thing as well? When it comes to sexual abuse, if the person that you're showing this or inserting or touching is, or even if they are under the influence of alcohol or drugs, it still counts as sexual abuse because they were not in their right frames of mind to make those decisions to say yes or no. So it cannot be done when the person is drunk. It should not be done when the person is under the influence of drugs or not in their right thinking mind. It should not always also be done if the person is threatened. So if you threateningly perform any sexual act on someone, then that counts as abuse because the person was under duress. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, it does answer the question. As you were speaking, a question just came to my mind because, sometimes there's the whole issue of someone is in a situation where another person is doing to them what they don't want. They don't like it. They don't want it. But then in that time, they find that they are frozen and they don't say anything, so they are silent. But it's not that they like or they want or they enjoy what's going on. But I don't know if it's shock. I don't know if it's whatever. They're not able to expressively say no. So, and then that person comes out of that situation and they're like, or maybe they can't even fight it, but they feel so horrible. Like the emotion of what you feel is there,
Absolutely.
and then you then start blaming yourself. Oh, okay, did I allow it? Was this really abuse? Then that brings that whole confusion of, was I really abused or did I allow it? Because for me, that's the whole issue of consent. Because I know you mentioned consent. You're saying without your consent,
and I said explicit consent as well. Now, explicit consent is if I shrug. If you ask me, do you want something, and I just do that and I shrug, that is not explicit consent. It is not, because I did not say yes, I would like this, or yes, I did not say the word yes. If I shrug, then that is not explicit consent. And coming back to what you just picked up there about the person freezing. Now, there are different people have different emotional responses to traumatic experiences. Now, for some people, they freeze. Some people fawn, and some people just run away. Some people, so there's freeze, fawn, and flight. Now, with freezing, the person is trying to kind of freeze their reality and just take it's a bit like an out-of-body experience. So you could almost say that the person's mind and spirit have left and they've just given their bodies over to you to do whatever it is that you want to do. They freeze, that is an emotional response. Now, did that person give explicit consent in that situation? No, they did not. And the fact that during a sexual experience or during sexual activity, if the fact that I gave explicit consent for a kiss does not mean that I gave explicit consent for sexual intercourse. So I need to say, yes, I want sexual intercourse. And I know that this can be it's a bit nuanced. It's difficult to actually tell if someone wants it or not. But then during that process, if the person says no, you have to respect that. If you then carry on, if the individual or the perpetrator then carries on, then it could be described as sexual abuse, because kissing is not sexual intercourse. And if you kiss me and I suddenly, move away, or I tell you to stop, then it should not carry on.
Yeah, thank you. I guess it's the whole thing of feeling violated,
Absolutely.
Because for someone now for someone that's watching that might be confused as to, was I really abused? Was I not abused? Trying to assess, but they're not, something happened that they're not happy about. They're not comfortable with. It taunts them, it worries them. But then they're wondering, like, was I really abused? Is it really my fault? That sometimes it's someone so maybe someone you're in a relationship with, someone you're close to, someone that you trust.
It could even be family.
Exactly. It could be family. So then when it's someone so close, it now raises all of these questions, So two things I want you to address that. And also the issue of, if you end up enjoying that, I know it's not even funny,
that experience.
If someone ends up enjoying, they didn't want it, they hated it, they probably froze or whatever their response. If they ran away, maybe that wouldn't have happened, if they were able to successfully run away from that situation. But say, for instance, they somehow were still in that situation, and the whole thing ended up playing out, and they enjoyed, their body enjoyed the experience, even if their mind was screaming. So how does one reconcile that kind of situation? It still comes back to my question of, how do I know if really I was abused? If, number one, I found myself staying there. Number two, I somehow, there was some sort of pleasure, because some guys have actually come with this, but you enjoyed it now type of response.
Yeah, I suppose, in terms of how do I know that I was abused, people have to educate themselves. We leave most of our lives to chance. We don't go out to seek information. We don't go out to seek whether to, things like shame, things like guilt. Now, the reason why I got into coaching is because I'm interested in things like those, rejection, and just understanding the things that have happened to me over the years. But then people do not necessarily go out and seek and read and watch videos and all of that. So it comes down to educating yourself on what actually counts as sexual abuse. At the start of the video, I talked about other forms of abuse. So many people do not know that being in a controlling relationship is emotional abuse. They do not know. All they look out for is, did he hit you? If he did not, then it's not abuse. But it's not always the case. So I think education goes a long way. And a show like this, which brings out the light, which just shines a light on things like sexual abuse, would help people to understand whether there was abuse that happened or not. Now, how do I know? First, did I give consent? Did I say, yes, I wanted this? And if I did say, yes, I wanted this, then the person is, obviously, they cannot say you wanted it. But then if also I did not say, yes, I wanted it. If I said, if you asked, can I kiss you? I'm taking, for example, maybe it's a first kiss or something like that. Could I kiss you? And I said, yes, you can. I asked for a kiss. And the moment I carry on, I need to ask your consent. Even in marriage, I need to ask, are you okay for me to do this? Is this all right? If my body language as well, if my body language tells you that you shouldn't do it, and you carry on and ignore my body language, then, that can count as abuse. Now, there is no fine line. Things such as sexual abuse, they can be quite difficult to prove that it has happened, but also they can be quite difficult to disprove as well. So it is down to the person, the victim, who should say, well, I did not say yes. First, educate themselves about what counts as sexual abuse. Because especially, let me give you a classic example. In Africa, in most African communities, back home in Africa, in Cameroon in particular, you would find, when I was growing up, there was one place that I would never, ever want to work in, and that was in a bar. Why did I not like working in bars? Because the men who came there, they would have seen you like, well, you are serving me drinks, therefore I have the right to maybe give you a tap on your bottom, or, or things like that. That alone is sexual abuse, because I did not, that is my job. Okay, so if I do not educate myself and know that it is sexual abuse, then I'll just say maybe this person is poorly behaved. And also it comes down to, I think, the laws that govern such a thing. So it just boils down to education for people to be able to know that this is what counts as sexual abuse. There's also one thing that I did not mention when I said what sexual abuse is.
Okay.
If someone, an adult from the ages of 18 and above, has any sexual relations with someone younger, then that counts as sexual abuse, even if they consented to it, because that is a minor, that is a child. They're assuming that, the law assumes that that child is not mature enough to make concrete, explicit decisions when it comes to sex.
All right, thanks, Ivy. So the next question, I guess, would be, what are the effects that this type of abuse can have on a person's life growing up? Let's say someone experienced abuse as a child, or even as an adult, because lately in the news it's been everywhere. So many rape cases. It's just crazy how I don't know if it's an increase or it's just that now because of social media, people are speaking up a bit more because they don't have to say face to face. They are behind a device, so they can easily say, oh, this happened and that happened, and then it can go far like that. So how does one, coming out of that situation, growing up to be an adult, how do you spot the signs of how this type of experience is affecting your life?
I think it has so many effects. Sexual abuse is a traumatic experience, like every other form of abuse. It is a traumatic experience. Now, this one is even more traumatic because it is abuse that is on your body. It almost invades you. It's really, really traumatic. And when I talk of a traumatic experience, I just wrote down here what the definition of what counts as a traumatic experience, which I'm going to read. It says that a traumatic experience is a deeply distressing or disturbing experience that leaves you feeling helpless, feeling hopeless, and it leaves you feeling emotionally out of control. Sometimes it leaves its victims struggling with upsetting emotions, memories, anxiety, feeling numb, disconnected, and unable to trust people. So just from that definition and that second sentence alone, you can start to imagine what the effects of sexual abuse could be on its victims. Yeah. There is anxiety. The first thing is anxiety, depression, and shame. Now, shame is one thing. I did talk about shame in my show last week. But shame is one thing that focuses a lot on self. We are our own worst critics, by the way. It is not necessarily what A says out there that is the worst thing that can happen to me. It is a story that I'm telling myself that is the worst thing that can happen to me. And therefore, if I am walking around in shame, I'm probably blaming myself for that experience, for that sexual abuse. Even if it wasn't my fault, I am probably blaming myself. I'm saying things like, because I have been abused, I am not good enough. I am abused, I am condemned. And I start making these I am statements about myself. The more I make them, the more I believe that. Of course, because of that, that could lead down to anxiety and eventually depression. Shame is directly correlated to depression. People who carry a lot of shame around are likely to be either very anxious or quite depressed. Okay. Also, there is that inability to trust people. If someone has been sexually abused, one of the effects on them is the inability to trust people. And because they cannot trust people as single persons, as people who are single, it can be quite difficult and daunting to carry on in relationships if you do not build that trust for one another and eventually go into marriage. And also, it just limits you because I cannot trust you. I cannot then be my authentic self around you. Because I cannot trust you, I cannot be connected on a deeper level, on an emotional level with you. So sexual abuse would limit people from deeper level connectedness. And of course, we are social beings. We thrive on being connected to significant others. If we cannot be connected because of that lack of trust, then our relationships are going to be quite shallow and not really deep and meaningful. Also, it could lead to unwanted pregnancies. We cannot leave that one out. It could lead to unwanted pregnancies and STIs as well. So those are some of the effects of sexual abuse. Obviously, the person themselves might go around blaming themselves. And that is one thing that even crushes that individual more than everything else. Because with STIs, unwanted pregnancy, with STIs, you could go to the hospital and get treated for those. Unwanted pregnancies, the person can choose whatever they want to do with that unwanted pregnancy. But when it affects you on a deeper level, it does not, when someone is sexually abused, it is not just their body that is abused, it is their mind, it is their spirit that has been abused as well, that has been violated. They feel violated because of that inner being, that spirit, that soul, that mind that has been affected. And therefore, they are affected as a whole, really. Wow. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. It definitely does. It really gives a lot of insight into how, especially when you did mention about relationships, having surface level relationships. And like you said, we're relational human beings. Everyone wants something deeper. We want to be able to connect with people on a deeper level. But if someone finds that they're just stuck on this surface level relationships, they're stuck blaming themselves, they're stuck in a place where sometimes you can't even put a finger on what's wrong, but you're not just happy, just in a limbo, so to say. Yeah. How do you recommend that someone gets healing and moves past all of this to be their best selves, to thrive?
In terms of healing, there are several things that could happen. Okay. Now this is my baby. Healing is my baby, really. In terms of healing, there are so many things that can happen. The first thing is they can seek professional help. Okay. They could want to seek professional help. Now, it depends also on the age at which they were abused. Okay. Can I just backtrack a little bit and go back to those effects?
Yeah.
Now, one of those effects of sexual abuse could be personality disorders. There are so many people who walk around with personality disorders. When I talk of personality disorders, I mean things like psychopaths. I mean things like people like narcissists. I mean people like borderline personality disorders. There are so many personality disorders that came from abuse, especially in childhood. So, and these personality disorders, you find that people, or codependency, it could be, people who are far extreme left, or can I say extreme right? Extreme right, like narcissists and psychopaths. And then you find people who are extreme lefts, like codependents and people pleasers and all of that. So depending on what age that happened, you can start to recommend several different things. But one of the things that I would recommend is seeking professional help. And to seek professional help, the person could seek professional help from a therapist. Now, therapists are people whom you go to, psychotherapists. They work mainly on the mind, and they try to help you to understand what is happening to you and ways to move forward. Then you've got counselors as well. They could seek professional help from counselors. They could go into a counseling office. They could go into counseling for people who have been abused sexually. There are groups that people can join, a bit like AA, that Alcohol Anonymous. There are also groups that people can go in just to talk about their experiences. There's talk therapy as well. People can seek help from therapists, from talk therapy, from, counseling. They could seek the services of a coach as well to be able to heal. But then the issue with coaches is that, it's not an issue, but coaches are more forward thinking. They would try and, give an idea of, have an idea of what happened in the past. But they will then look at what your future looks like. They are very future oriented. Counselors are past oriented. They try and make you come to terms with that past. So maybe someone could decide to mix and match all of these three professional people so that they can move them forward. And can I just say as well, for healing to happen, the victim has to want it to happen. If a victim just is going through the motions and just going to a therapist or a coach because someone else said so, because someone else wanted them to do it, it is likely not to have the same impact as if they actually wanted to heal from that traumatic experience. Now, I'm going to talk about, different, another side to healing, not the professional side, but another side to healing. Okay? I'm going to talk about self-healing. There is self-healing that the person can do, because more often than not, many people have reported that using therapists and counseling, it works. It has its own limitations, but it is not as good as you healing yourself. So in terms of self-healing is working on transforming the mindset, that because often people who have suffered from sexual abuse, they might be harboring like this mindset mentality, this victim mentality in their mindsets. And in itself, that is very limiting. When you see yourself as a victim, it is quite limiting. It stops you from moving on. You start to blame, you start to shift blame to everything else. You start to give excuses. But when you do not, if you change that mindset from victim mentality to being solution oriented, then you can start to heal. How can you do that? You could either, that is where the coach comes in, because coaches are people who help to change mindsets, pretty much. So this could be done alongside the other professionals. You can be seeking professional help from a therapist while also trying to change your mindset. Now, how do I do this? You need to almost focus on three main parts. I often say for healing to happen, complete and utter healing, where you're not sat there thinking about, emotionally ruminating about what happened to you in the past or whatever, you need to focus on three main aspects. You need to focus on healing your body, because it was your body that was violated. You need to focus on healing the mind, and you need to focus on healing the spirit. Now, these do not have to be standalone things. You can do these three methods or these three things to heal yourself alongside one another. Right, so how do you heal your body? Our bodies are, this, what we carry ourselves in, that is the body. We have got hormones in our body. Our bodies are controlled. So most of the activities that we do in our bodies are controlled by hormones. And hormones make me to be able to blink when someone is bringing their finger there. Hormones make me to be able to digest my food. Hormones are also responsible for our moods. Our mood, when you're happy, when you're sad, when you're angry, and all of that. Those are hormones that are responsible for that. Now, there are certain hormones that are really, really important in being happy. And those are things like endorphins. There is dopamine, there is serotonin. Now, these three are usually called happy hormones. And there are certain things that I can do to boost the levels of these happy hormones in my body. Because if I'm sat there in a rut, obviously, the level of these three hormones are quite low. When they are quite low, I am in a rut. When they are we need a moderate amount. So I can get outside into the sunshine. It is as simple as that, but people often downplay the effect of sunshine on us. It is not just to get a good tan. It is also when you expose yourself to sunshine, it boosts the levels of serotonin, which is a happy hormone in the body. Okay. It also boosts the levels of endorphins as well. Another thing that you can also do is exercise. Many people have reported that when they are feeling a bit low in mood and they go to the gym and work out, they feel better. It clears their minds. So when you exercise, you are helping your body to activate these, to make these hormones, to secrete these hormones as well. And that is why people are reported to feeling better when they go to the gym. Also, sleep. Sleep is very, very important. It's been reported that sleep also helps us to secrete higher levels of some of these hormones as well. Sleep is important in maintaining your mood. I am very cranky when I don't have enough sleep. My sleep is so important to me. So you could sleep as well. You could. It is recommended to have 7 to 9 hours of sleep every day. Also, nutrition. Nutrition is really key. When people are feeling crap, they tend to crave crappy food. And if you can overcome those cravings and help yourself to eat more healthily, because the more healthily you eat, the more those you're keeping. First, you're feeding your body really good food. Anyways, you're giving your body nutritious food. So control your diet in terms of maybe avoid drugs. When I talk of drugs, I mean things like, all of these addicted drugs. So avoid addictions like cocaine, like whatever. And alcohol as well. So watch out alcohol, watch out for drugs, watch out your diet. Also, activities, indulge in activities that you love to do. Maybe if you love cooking, try and cook more. If you love cleaning, do that. If you love going out to visit friends and all of that. Now, that is how you look after your body. Are there any questions on that?
Yeah, because it's funny you should say, you mentioned about drugs and things like that, but it's interesting because when people feel low in mood, what do? You drink, you take whatever social recreational drug or whatever. People tend to take these things to numb whatever they are feeling, but you're saying that it in fact has the opposite effect.
It does, because when you take drugs, it obviously taking drugs. Now, taking drugs like cocaine and all of those are directly related to hormonal imbalance, and you want your hormone levels to be balanced so that you can have that good mood, you can feel good. And obviously, when you take those drugs, the reason why people take those drugs is to have that spike, that high. They help to secrete happiness hormone, yes, but it is such a spike that when it wears out, there is a huge crash on the other side.
I see.
And that is why even for students, like for children in school, we do advise, do not take too much sugar, because it gives you that sugar rush. When people take drugs, it gives them that rush. They feel good for a very short space of time, and then they have that crash afterwards. And it is during that crash that you find many people kind of getting depressed and killing themselves, and suicide rates become higher and all of that. Your mind is your emotions, your thoughts, your intellect, your will, so your decision making. So when you mess up with your mind, you're pretty much messing up with your ability to make correct decisions. You're messing up your emotions, you're messing up your intellect, your ability to process things and then be able to make those decisions. And because your mind is messed up, your mind is bound, this thing that happened to you pretty much binds your mind. And no one can have a free life with a bound mind. There is just no way. There is just no way your life can be free. There is no way I can sit here and smile and just be me and just enjoy life, what God has given me, sunshine and health and everything, when my mind is bound. So if I look at, there's one Bible verse that really stands out to me every time I think about healing and healing the mind, and that is Romans 12:2, which says, be not conformed to this world, to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. If you do not actively seek ways to renew your mind, it is going to be bound by the patterns of this world. Sexual abuse is one of the patterns of this world. So the question always is, how do I renew my mind? First of all, before I even go into how to renew my mind, you imagine the battle that goes on in people's minds on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
The mind is like the battleground of my future. It's the battleground of my life, really. And wherever my mind goes, that is where I would go, because my mind allows me to make decisions. My mind allows me to feel things. If my mind goes back to that sexual experience, I'm going to probably sit here and feel it as if it were happening right now. If my mind allows me to go back to a time in the past when I was ecstatic, when I was happy, I'll probably sit here and smile to myself. And that is why you can see people sit and just think about things, and you'd see someone just burst out laughing and you'll not be sure why they're laughing. Meanwhile, they have practically transported their minds from here now to a time where they were laughing. So my mind is like a battleground. Whatever I let in is what is going to constantly predict how my mood at that time is going to be. So how can I transform my mind? There are several things that people can do to transform their mind. The first one is educating yourself. What do I educate myself on? I need to educate myself on sexual abuse. If I was sexually abused, I need to go and find education on sexual abuse, either by reading books or by watching programs or by listening to talk shows. I need to do it. And why is that important? When you go to the office of a therapist or a counselor, what do? They almost practically re-traumatize you. They take you back to that experience. They start asking you, what did it make you feel? How did you react? They start asking you these questions to take you back to that experience. Now, when you educate yourself, you're practically taking yourself back to that experience. It might hurt. You might sit there and think, oh my goodness, why am I listening to this? There are people who would just see a picture or hear, a certain song play on the radio, and they straight away remember a traumatic experience that they were in.
Exactly.
That re-traumatizes them.
Yeah.
So you need to educate yourself on what it is that you went through at that time. When you educate yourself, you start to have a bit more empathy for yourself. You actually start to acknowledge that, yes, this happened and it happened to me. And acknowledgement is the first step of healing. Because when we go back to, we said that people sometimes freeze. For most people who freeze during traumatic experiences, they find it really difficult to actually accept that it happened to them. Because at that freezing moment, I'm like, I've transported my mind and spirit somewhere else. And I'm like, here, just do whatever you want to do and let me go. And it becomes really difficult to come to terms with it. So educating yourself allows you to come to terms with the fact that it happened, to actually acknowledge that it happened. It may hurt, but it is, a really crucial step in kind of healing. Now, how else can I renew my mind? I can evaluate. Often when people get abused, sexually abused, they blame themselves. They say to themselves, well, if I did not wear this dress, if I did not go there, if only I had shouted and screamed, maybe it wouldn't have happened. If only I had fought back in this way. And we start, just going through and ruminating about it and blaming ourselves. But when you actually evaluate the process, almost taking all emotions out, you ask yourself questions like, okay, let's look at the facts. How did this happen? When did it happen? Who else was there to help? There was no one, so you couldn't have helped. Did they overpower me? Yes, they overpowered me, so you couldn't have done anything else. When you analyze, evaluate the facts that were there, you also start to develop more empathy for the fact that actually it wasn't my fault. It is something to do with them than to do with me that this happened.
Exactly.
Who did this?
Yeah.
It tells me more about who they are as a person rather than who I am. Also, you start to understand why it hurts. Why is it that this sexual abuse still hurts me 20 years on, 30 years on? This person may have died and gone. Maybe they have gone on with their lives. Maybe you've never met them again. Maybe you've never heard of them again. What is it about this thing that makes it hurt this much, this long on? It could be that maybe my current partner talks like them. And so it re-traumatizes me every time my partner talks. It could be that my current partner looks like them. So it re-traumatizes me. It could be that I have not forgiven myself. So it re-traumatizes me. It could be that I've not forgiven them. When you ask yourselves these, when you evaluate and ask yourselves, what is it about this thing that hurts me? It could also be that I did not fight back. Sometimes victims are angry with themselves. Why did I not fight back? And they start blaming themselves. So when you evaluate, you ask yourself all of these questions. It might be really, really hard and painful when you get the answers. Because, we as coaches, we believe that you have all the answers within you. It's just that you've not asked yourself the right questions. You've not tapped inwards to find those answers. Also, how can I, heal my mind? I can create new pathways. How can I do that? Once I have educated myself, once I have evaluated, I can change the story. I can start to tell myself a new story than the one that I've told myself for the past 20 years. I have seen myself as a victim. I can move myself from that victim mindset into a mindset where I am telling myself that actually there was nothing else you could have done in that situation. You did the best that you could have done. I can start to think about, I can journal my feelings throughout the days. I can just write down. The one thing about things like sexual abuse is we do not often give sexual abuse a voice. By journaling, you are giving that thing that happened to you that voice. Even if you're not talking it out, you are actually writing it. And tell you what, the power of a pen and paper, many people underestimate it, but it is huge. I can say that because I have done it. I have journaled, and it is amazing how much you let out when you journal. because many people fear to even talk to other people about the things that happen to them. So you journaling, you're not talking to anyone, you're just putting your thoughts onto paper. Also, I could do affirmations. You know, I can start to change the narrative of that sexual abuse that happened and start to say, okay, fine, I am not condemned because this happened to me. Actually, I am valuable, I am worthy of respect and love. I can do those affirmations. The more I do things that change, that create a new narrative, the more I start to heal. Also, I can validate my emotions. Sometimes we feel crappy and we don't validate those emotions. We just sweep it under the carpet and just keep going. I can validate my emotions by writing it down, by saying, actually, I feel really crap today. I feel angry today. I feel happy. I feel, I feel just sore on the inside. I feel numb. When you validate your emotions, you're pretty much giving your emotions a voice. Remember, the mind consists of the emotions as well. So those are some of the things that you can do to kind of heal your mind.
Wow, Ivy, that is so packed. Like, it's really,
it is a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is, and I've learned a lot from just listening to that as well. Like evaluating this, the power of evaluating the situation.
Absolutely.
Just recognizing that actually it's not your fault. And you did mention saying that you might be thinking, oh, maybe it's the dress I'm wearing, or I was wearing at that time, or maybe because I allowed this person. Somehow you're thinking I allowed this person. I've always, for me, my mindset and what I always say to people is that I believe, I'd like you to even respond to this, what I'm about to say. I believe that it's never the victim's fault. I believe, because I was having a conversation once with someone and I said, okay, if a naked person, because they were like, oh, it depends on how the person dresses and things like that. And the question is, if a naked person comes before you now, would you rape that person? If you won't rape the person, what's the difference between you and that rapist that raped that person when they were naked? It's still the same person. Why aren't you doing it? And why is this other person doing it? So I always feel that it's definitely always the fault of whoever perpetrated that act, because they had a choice.
They did. Every action that we take, it is taken by choice. There's one of two things that you can do. Either you do it or you don't. If you choose to do it, you face the consequences. If you choose not to do it, fine. It is never, ever the victim's fault. Never. Why? Because that person made the decision to violate the victim. That person made the decision. Now, the word victim, to me, I cringe at it for some reason. I don't like to see people as victims. I'll always put that word on quotes, because the moment you tell someone, especially in our current day and time, the moment you call someone a victim, they are likely to wear that victim cap and start walking around as a victim. So I don't know what else I would call them, but for the purpose of this, I'm going to call them victim.
Call them survivors.
Yeah, I would call them survivors. Actually, yeah, that is a really good way to describe them. They are survivors. It is never their fault. Sexual abuse, physical abuse, what kind of abuse, what type of abuse, is never their fault. Am I saying that they should not take responsibility? They should take self-responsibility. What do I mean by that? What I mean is they should take upon healing as their own thing that they have to do. So they cut me, but it is my job to heal. So I need to take responsibility of my healing. And when I take responsibility of my healing, I am taking my power back from whoever did that, whatever it is that they did to me.
Yeah.
So survivors of sexual abuse, when you take responsibility for your healing, you're taking your power back.
I love that quote.
When you take
power. Responsibility for your healing, you're taking
absolutely.
Your power back. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, now there's a third one, which I think to me is the most important. Healing your spirit. Now, in terms of healing your spirit, The way I see my spirit is, whilst the mind is the source of, your emotions, your intellect, and all of those things, my spirit is the source of my energy. If I feel really crappy, or let me just ask you this, have you ever been interacting with someone and you left feeling drained?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
right.
that happens.
And have you, even if there are people that I interact with for 5-10 minutes and I leave feeling so drained. It's like there was something tapping my energy away. There are other people that I interact with for hours and I leave feeling uplifted. Now, it is down to the spirits of these people who are interacting. It's down to the person whom you're interacting with, is down to their spirit, that you either leave feeling drained or feeling uplifted.
Okay.
When someone uplifts you, if I go to church, if I pray, if I sit down and do my Bible study, I leave feeling uplifted because my spirit has been uplifted.
Okay.
I leave feeling energized because my spirit has been energized. So when you heal your spirit, you are healing your source of energy. That is why you often find people who suffer from abuse, they are always exhausted. Even if they've done the list of activities, they are always feeling exhausted.
Wow.
Because their spirit is not energized.
Wow.
So my spirit is my source of energy. Now, how do I energize myself? I energize myself by tapping into my spirituality in terms of religion. I am a Christian, so I would pray, I would read the Bible, I would meditate on Christian scriptures and all of that to energize my spirit. Now, if I am relying on humans are definitely either a very low source of energy or no energy at all. On the other hand, being close to God is a huge source of energy for me. And therefore, to heal that spirit, to energize my spirit, I need to be close to God. And how can I do that? There are several things that I can do. Before I even go to that, let me come back to humans. If people experience sexual abuse, they are likely to hate these people who abuse them. They are likely to harbor bitterness and revenge and resentment and unforgiveness towards these people. And of course, if I harbor grudges, if I harbor bitterness and resentment and unforgiveness, now these are energy vampires. I call them energy vampires because the moment I am not forgiving someone, I am carrying a heavy load. I am 10 pounds heavier.
Yeah.
If not even 20 or 100, because I am carrying bitterness and unforgiveness in my heart. My spirit is weighed down. My spirit feels heavy. It's a bit like I carry a load on my head. And due to me carrying those, naturally, because I am feeling weighed down in my spirit, I am feeling weighed down in the physical as well. It feels like I'm carrying something, but I'm not.
Yeah.
And you see some people, they are often either hunched over, or you see their posture is a bit like that, to show that, like, there are times when I'm feeling, a bit gloomy, I do find that my shoulders move upwards and inwards a bit like that, like as if I'm carrying something. That is simply because my spirit is quite heavy. It's not like I'm carrying something physically. And unforgiveness is a huge thing. It is huge. Now, obviously, if I'm harboring these things, my energy is zapped away. I spend a lot of energy trying to either plot how I'm going to revenge. I spend a lot of energy trying to plot or trying to, being resentful, being unforgiving, being bitter against this person. Then how can I do this? I can heal, first of all, people who have suffered from sexual abuse. They are often afraid that how are people going to look at them? What is he going to say? What are they going to say? How are they going to look at me? They're probably going to think that I am condemned already. The first thing I need to tackle is that fear of what people are going to say. Because there are so many people who have gone through this. maybe my experience is just a way. Maybe that was something that God allowed for me to happen. I'm not saying that God made it happen. God allowed it to happen so that I could be a source of healing for another person. The moment you start to think in that light, you start to heal. So they need to tackle the fear, first of all, the spirit of fear. They also need to look at shame and guilt. What is it about this incident that makes me ashamed of myself? Because that is what often happens.
Yeah.
I feel this guilt. I feel this shame. Why do I feel these things? Even though I know that, I'm not the one who did this. The moment you deal with that shame, the moment you change that story that you're telling yourself, that mindset, you are dealing with that shame pretty much. So the moment you deal with that shame and guilt, then you would start to, you're kind of just making your spirit a bit lighter. Also, what could stop people from, another thing that people need to work on when it comes to their spirit is pride and ego. My pride, I have built this pretty life for myself and just shut down the other part of me that happened, that sexual abuse that happened when I was a kid. I have put that in a box, I've packaged it nicely, and I've thrown it away, never to be opened again. And unless people open those boxes, for me, I would have done that because maybe it's a thing of pride. For someone else, they would have done that because maybe, their ego would be bruised. Maybe they are in some high-flying job at the moment and they do not want the people in that job to ever know that this thing happened to them. Maybe they are in a new relationship. They do not want those people to ever know that this thing happened to them. We need to open those boxes, because if you don't open the boxes, you do not allow space for air to come into the box and heal whatever it is that has to be. Also, there's unforgiveness. This is huge. People often think that forgiveness is, yes, it doesn't hurt anymore and I have forgotten about it. No, people also often think that forgiveness means I have reconciled with you, we're on the same page, we're still dining and wining together. No, forgiveness is simply just acknowledging first that yes, it happened to me. I am going to take the decision, conscious steps to stop feeling the emotions, those hurtful emotions that I feel every time I think about this person. Of course, forgiveness is not even for the person, it is for yourself. Yeah. And even if the person is not sorry, you still have to forgive them. Because when we go back to the Bible, it says, we need to forgive people so that God can forgive us. So what kind of forgiveness are we expecting from God if we cannot forgive our fellow human? And it is hard. I'm not undermining it at all. It is hard. It could take a year. It could take 2 years. It could take 5.
Yeah, Ivy, I have a question about what you just said in terms of forgiveness, because there's a question of you're forgiving someone who it's in the past. Yeah. It happened. It's done and dusted. But if you're in a situation where, fine, we're doing this and we're doing it for singles, and you might find that there are some people that might be listening to this that are in ongoing abuse.
Okay, yeah.
They're experiencing it as an ongoing basis, Yeah. And so the thing is, how do you forgive someone that is continually putting you in that situation? Yeah, it's continually putting you in that situation. How do you walk away from that? And also, sorry, just on top of that, it's also the issue of, you said when you forgive someone, it's not necessarily, oh, we're now whining and dining, everything is hunky-dory. So how do you reconcile both? How do you reconcile, I forgive you, but we can't be in the same space, or we can't be friends? I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. The thing is, we often think that because I have forgiven you, it means I am saying that what you did was right. No. Okay. What you did was not right, but I choose. Notice, it is a voluntary thing. You choose. It's not a feeling. If you are waiting that after 1 year you're going to feel good, then you're probably you're going to wait for a very long time. It is a choice that I am making, that every time your name is mentioned, I am not going to feel again this surge of emotions that come up that make me even want to kill the person who has mentioned your name. Yeah, pretty much. Also, does it mean that what you did to me was, trivial, or was it right? No, it doesn't. And that is where I say forgiveness does not necessarily mean I'll be whining and dining with you. If I forgive you, of course, I cannot do forgiveness by myself. I need to seek the help of God to be able to forgive. So I need to seek my spiritual guidance, which is God, to be able to forgive this person. So I need to get my place. I need to every day wake up and make up my decision that, yes, I want to forgive. First of all, I want to forgive them. It is a process. It does not just happen that I would sit and say, yes, I've forgiven them. No, it is a process. You wake up one morning and you say, I want to forgive them. And then maybe 5 mornings later, you wake up and you sit. It's a process that happens on the inside of you. And sit and ask yourself, how do I feel about this person who did this thing? You still feel angry. God, help me to forgive this person. And you keep going on and on. Obviously, God is asking us to pray for our enemies, which is so difficult.
Yeah.
Just the mention of their name alone is difficult. So you will have to talk less of you seeing them. It's twice as difficult. You will have to consciously every day wake up, make that choice, that decision that, yes, I choose to forgive this person. I don't know how this is going to work out, but God, I am trusting on you to help me to forgive this person. And then eventually you might start to mention their name. You might have been calling them, I choose to forgive this coconut, because you just don't want to call their names. You feel like calling their names is giving them some level of dignity that they do not deserve. Then you move into a place where, yes, you start calling their name, whether it's James or Peter or John or Mary or whatever. I choose to forgive Mary. And then you might get to a place where you start to pray for them. I pray for Mary because even though they did this thing to me, I still pray that your will be done in their lives. So it is a process. It is difficult. It is not easy. It is difficult, especially when it comes to abuse. It is quite difficult to forgive people. But for you to set your spirit free, you have to do it. And for me, the way I see it is, if I want to heal, if I have to heal, I have to forgive. And therefore, I want to do it. And also, just talking about forgiveness is not just forgiving the other person. You need to forgive yourself as well. Because often we blame ourselves for things that happen to us. And therefore, we need to forgive ourselves for allowing ourselves to be violated in that manner. And once you forgive yourself and forgive the other, you are cleansing your spirit. Now, is it that you forget? No, you do not, because that was a painful thing. It is just that forgiveness is letting go of those emotions, those horrible emotions that come up every time you either think about that person or that person's name is mentioned. So pretty much not allowing for whatever happened to you to define your current state or your future state. Because when you do not forgive, trust me, it affects your current and future state.
Yeah.
But if you do, then you are opening up your mind, especially when it comes to relationships. If you don't forgive one person, if you harbor that person resentment towards one person in your heart, you are pretty much just blocking yourself from loving the other person fully and wholly. So if I don't forgive A, I cannot then open up my heart to love B wholly, the way they should be loved or the way they deserve to be loved. So for me to have a thriving, loving, whole relationship with B, I need to let go of A from my heart. I need to let go of resentment towards A. I need to let go of the need to revenge. I need to let go of that unforgiveness towards A.
Wow, thanks, Ivy. This has been such a good, like the healing you've discussed, the various strategies. I mean, I never thought about it like that before. The body, the mind, and the spirit, And thank you for all of the practical steps and practical points that you've given in terms of healing in these various areas. It's been a very, very enriching conversation. And I just want to say, if you're listening to this or if you're watching this and you are in a situation where you're in an abusive relationship, take a step, make that decision. I mean, see yourself as valuable. Ivy, I'm also going to let you speak to this. What do you have to say if someone is watching this and they are currently in a relationship where they're being abused? What do they do? I mean, what do they do?
Abuse is one really difficult thing to talk about, especially for people who are currently in those relationships, because people often just say, you need to bounce, you need to walk, you need to get up and go. But it's not as easy as that. It's not as, it's easier said than done, let me just say so. Mm-hmm. Now, what abusers do, oh my goodness, this is like a talk for another day. What abusers do, it's going to take like a whole day. I'm not going to be long though. The thing with abusers is they almost brainwash their victims. Yeah. They brainwash their victims to have no self-worth because that abuse has happened so much. They do not have that self-worth or self-esteem to get up and go. Mm. They do not see the light at the end of the tunnel. And they would rather just stay in that situation than challenge the abuser. They're afraid of what is going to happen. They might be a situation where they are afraid of, okay, if I have children, where do I go from here? Where do I go with the children? Maybe the abuser is their only source of income or their only source of financial assistance. So it's really nuanced in the sense that there is no one scenario fits all. But what I'm going to say for people who are being abused is seek help. Mm. Seek help. First, educate yourself on what counts as abuse. Because, Bibi, this thing, we're talking about this thing, there are so many people who are out there who are abused who do not even know that they are abused.
Yeah, yeah.
They know that something is not right. They feel it, but they don't know that it is abuse. So you need to educate yourself, first of all. If something is happening that seems a bit strange, go onto Google, start finding, start looking out, start asking questions on Google. You will come to things that would seem like your situation. If it describes your situation, then maybe just look a bit more into it. For example, if someone is constantly telling you that I am stupid, you are a dumb person, you are a good for nothing, you cannot amount to anything, and just keeps using those words to you, go onto Google and start typing the impact of being called stupid every single day. Mm-hmm. You'll probably come up with something. And if whatever you're reading describes your situation, then search more, educate yourself, because knowledge is key, is power.
Yeah.
When you educate yourself, you can then be able to have an understanding of what is going to happen. The second thing is people need to also know that just build some amount of self-worth in themselves and know that you are valuable. Evaluate that situation. Am I better off staying in this rut for the rest of my life? Or am I better off leaving, struggling or suffering even for 5 years and then enjoying the rest of my life? Which is the better evil of the two? Because I think many people fear with the uncertainty of going out and saying, okay, if I walk away now, what is going to happen? I don't have any money. Are you better off staying in that situation and being dead? Or are you better off being broke outside of that situation and staying alive? Yeah. So also make sure that you are safe. Some people have tried to leave their abusive partners and ended up being dead. Simply because they did not come up with an exit strategy. They did not come up with an exit plan. They did not seek help from someone, from a therapist or counselor, or maybe associations or places where they can help like abuse survivors. When you seek help from such people, you come up with a plan that you can then use so as to keep you safe. Because the moment an abuser knows that you're going to leave, that could escalate from 0 to 100 in a matter of seconds. And you're not sure what could happen. So, I'm sorry, think about an exit plan. If you want to leave, think about a safe exit plan. Some people take 2 years to plan their exit. Some people take 3 years. Some people take 1 year, 6 months, just to plan their exit such that they are safe when they eventually leave. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does, because for me, I'm one of those people that will get up and go. In fact, there was once, I had this friend, and we're in different schools. They ended up living together, and this guy was beating her. And for the life of me, I just couldn't understand why you're not married to someone, you're living with them, they're using you as their punching bag, you're cooking for them, you're literally doing everything for them, and they're treating you so horribly, So I'd had enough. I went to her house, I packed her things, and I said, let's go now. And we actually left, but a few days later, she was back there.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So, so you see, like, you're really right in saying that it's not just get up and leave. There's a process to it. That's what I'm learning from it. There definitely is for it to be sustainable, for it to be effective. There's a process to it. Yeah.
And trust me, that your friend, maybe she went back the second time, the round of abuse that she got would have been more than what she was getting at first.
Yeah.
And it's always the case with the abuse cycle. If you attempt to leave and fail, that is when the abuse escalates. So that is why I keep saying, make a plan. And when you make a plan, it should not just be a plan that you've made yourself. Get a few trusted people involved in that plan. It is not just, I'm going to get up and leave and then go, and then a few days later, I am craving that abuse again. And like I said, abuse is a psychological, abusers, they play psychological tricks on people. They make it such that you find it really difficult to leave them, because that process of loving you, push and pull, is the push and pull. They're pushing you away, they're pulling you the next moment. It messes up with your mind. And it makes you to crave that more. And that is why I could explain your friend, leaving and going back there, even though they're punching her every other day,
Wow, this is also interesting. So Ivy, if someone wants to use your services, you've talked about coaching, they definitely want to get out of the rut, they want to use your services. How can they access you? How can they reach you?
Okay, so if someone wants to use my services, the first thing is I am on Facebook. I have a Facebook page where I do Sunday shows and I talk about things like these. I am really interested in these. Find me on Ivy Rose's Corner on Facebook. And send me a message there. There is a phone number on there as well, which I cannot remember off the top of my head because it's saved in this phone that I'm using right now. But there is a phone number on there. But if you go on Ivy Rose's Corner, find me, send me a message. There are appointments that you can book an appointment as well. You can use the phone number on there and send me a message, and I will respond. Obviously, when you send a message on Ivy Rose's Corner, it responds immediately with an automated message. But that is just to keep, that communication going. When I pick up your message, I personally respond. So if you need services of a coach to transform your mind and to empower yourself, men and women alike, then do send me a message on Ivy Rose's Corner. Or also just go and follow the page and see all the, the vast amount of information that is on there.
Yeah, thanks, Ivy. I'm just gonna say 2 key things that I learned that I'd like my viewers to remember after this show, and I'd like you to also do like a final statement on what you'd like people to take away from this. 2 things. One of the things you said is you that has been abused, whoever has been abused has the responsibility to heal themselves. So that's the responsibility. The person has caught you, has done what they've done in the past, but going forward, it's my responsibility to heal myself, take hold of my future, and create a new reality, so to speak, for myself. And then secondly, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. That's not the type of responsibility you should be taking. Don't take the responsibility of the negative that happened, but take the responsibility of the decision to make things better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Ivy, what last words would you like to leave the viewers with?
I was going to say that for the first one that you said. Okay. Healing is my responsibility. They cut me, but it's my responsibility to heal. But then just adding upon that, I would say healing takes time. Give yourself time to heal. It is not just a one-day fix all. And also it requires intentionality and consistency. You have to be intentional about your healing, and you have to be consistent with the tips that we've given on here and other tips that you're going to find along the way with healing yourself. It does not matter whether it's sexual abuse or it's physical abuse, whatever form of abuse you have suffered, you need time. It takes time, it takes intentionality, it takes consistency. These three things you need definitely to put into your healing. And finally, have some love for yourself. Empathy, develop that empathy for yourself. Just love yourself that little bit extra. Just because you survived that experience and you're here listening to this now, it is a miracle. It is a blessing, and you need to see it as that. So develop that empathy for yourself and just love yourself a little bit more.
Oh, thanks, Ivy. It's been a really, really inspiring conversation. There you guys have it. If you need help to get yourself past whatever negative abuse, Ivy did mention there are various forms of abuse. It's not just sexual abuse. You feel like you're sort of in a rut and you want to move past it, you want to go ahead, you can definitely contact her via Ivy Rose's Corner. It's her Facebook page. Send her a message. There's a number on there. When she picks it up, she'll respond to you. You can definitely make an appointment to talk about things and to move yourself forward to the future that you want. Remember, this show, Wise Attraction, Chat Show for Singles, is about helping you to thrive as a single person and to make good decisions to set you up on the right path to marry well. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining us for another show. Please do like, comment, subscribe, talk about your experiences if you'd like to share. And we look forward to seeing you again at the next show. Thank you very much. And thank you, Ivy, for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Bibi.
All right then. Bye.
Bye.